Hi everyone, I'm Ashley. Today I'm going to be talking about why I feel that we should not force children to apologize. With that being said, let's take a moment and think about how you as an adult feel when you are apologizing for something that doesn't need an apology. Then let's think about how a child feels. I still believe that a child still needs to have good manners and develop a sense of empathy and compassion for others, and they still need to take responsibility for their actions. I'm just suggesting that changing the language to words that are far more powerful and healing, which will eventually lead to a child to apologize on their own. I took an interest in this topic as I started working at a children's center a couple years ago. I've worked with children for many years now, and one of their biggest things at the center was that they don't make kids apologize. And I was a little taken aback by it because I didn't understand what they meant. But as I began to observe my coworkers and how with the language that they use towards the children and the reactions that the kids had towards them and how they responded to the hurt child, it actually worked. So I was like, wow. And so I worked on it there, but now I've become a nanny for a year now for 3 toddlers, and I'm taking the "we don't use sorry" with me. And I've seen a big change in how my language and how the child responds. The language that I use is that when one of the children pushes another, I say, "You may not hurt my friends like that. It hurts their body." And then they need to go take a break for a couple minutes. And then we go and talk, and I say, "Now let's go see if your friend is okay." I believe, with that being said, children don't instantly absorb a situation or respond automatically like adults do. So with them taking a break for a couple minutes, it lets them process this situation that just happened. And then they'll be able to go over to the child, and usually what happens is they'll go in for a hug and they'll say, "I'm sorry, are you okay?" And then it's all over from there, and they go and play and everything's all good. They do understand what it means. A child might be trying to put together what has just happened when suddenly she has an enormous pressure from an adult. So let's take a step into a child's mindset and emotional state. And any empathy that the child has just felt has just flown out the window as they were put on spotlight for their screw-up, which is now on public display. I personally can picture that, and it just makes me want to hide and crouch in a corner until it's all over and everyone has moved on. It's pretty humiliating. And the child is not feeling much empathy or remorse. It's now become a war between the adult and the child, as the child is now mad at the other child for getting them in trouble with the adult. Forced apologies can negatively impact a childhood development. Early childhood experts suggest that forcing a child to apologize when they don't feel sorry can have negative and unintended consequences, which leads to confusion about feelings and sense of self. Telling her to repeat the demand, "I'm sorry," teaches her to distrust her feelings, and it's okay to lie about her feelings. It encourages a child that only a couple words can wriggle a child out of a difficult situation, and that she does not have to examine her own behavior. We often make assumptions that about who is guilty, and we force a child to apologizing for something that they didn't do, which can definitely affect their development of self-esteem. Lauren Afel from the magazine of Thinking Mothers believes that yes, she does think sorry does need to be used, but as I explain her opinion, listen closely to how she phrases her words around the question, should we make kids apologize? She writes, "When children are young, manners are always by rote. I used to think that was the reason to let them slide. Please and thank you are no more than empty tents if propped up by a true understanding and meaning. Having watched my first son, who was never made to apologize, turn into a school-aged boy who is still slow at apologizing and expressing the appropriate amount of remorse for his actions, she changed her tune. She is now convinced that the language is a formative bridge for emotions, and routinely using the right words paves the way for young kids to feel the right feelings. Clearly, in the context of children, she believes a sorry yes is shorthand, but reliance on verbal shortcuts, especially in the early years. It's not that we shouldn't further exploration, she says, but in the heat of the moment, an apology voiced genuinely takes so much sting from the wound. Every single time her child apologizes, not merely because the word is a band-aid, because it certainly is, it shows me, and it shows her quickly, that they have grasped the crucial truth in one's behavior. Though Lauren does feel "I'm sorry" should be used, when reading what she had to say closely, she does believe that sorry is shorthand and the pitfalls of apologizing too much. But what she does say is she realizes the language that needs to be used that leads up to "I'm sorry," and that it will lead the way for young kids to feel the right feelings. She also said, in the heat of the moment, an "I'm sorry" voiced genuinely takes sting away from the wound. She has taught her kids in which "I'm sorry" should be used. Corinne Jade, also from the magazine of Thinking Mother, states that no, we should not make kids apologize. She states not that she wants her children to be rude and oblivious. She values courtesy, empathy, and responsibility highly. She thinks that teaching the important lesson with the word "I'm sorry" is reactive rather than proactive, and often the point is missed by many adults and children. She says that sorry isn't a good apology. The key to responsibility is taking his or her actions and express the remorse. It is not what you say, but how you say it. Apologies does not teach empathy. Understanding one's emotions and reactions does. Sorry is more powerful if used in the context it was intended. The word is shorthand. It can be harmful in the way it causes others to perceive the people who use it, which magnifies self-doubt. The lesson is truly missed. The meaning of apology when taught sorry for every little thing that happens. Modeling an apology is a valuable lesson for a child. A child that has never been apologized for won't understand the apology process. Anne Grunstead said her son uses sorry as an escape clause, as she watched her son drag a chair to the edge of the deck and says sorry just as he sent it rolling down the stairs. For many years, she required her son to say sorry because that's what she was forced to apologize in through her childhood. He thinks that sorry means punishment over after a timeout. In an attempt to undo those lessons, Anne is improving her own apologizing skills, being careful by the way she apologizes to her son. She keeps the apology short. A child is not going to want to listen to a long-winded speech. She also backs up her apology by reassurance that the behavior won't happen again. The message that apology fixes everything, as a child punches another and says "I'm sorry," and he is excused and can move on. We are wrong to believe that empathy is taught by forcing an insincere apology. If a child is old enough to understand the apology and hurts another, it's not best to direct the apology, but better to acknowledge the situation, wait to model the behavior you want your child to show. In some instances, there are better ways to make amends than apologizing, and when they can respond naturally, they will come up with sincere gestures on their own, such as the little boy who passed his opponent on the soccer field when they collided, or the toddler who offers a toy to a crying child, or the girl who grabs a towel to wipe up her own mess, are all acting out of authentic empathy. If we want children to express honest apology, we need to be patient. We are powerful examples for children as humans. I'm sorry is taught by modeling it. Children need to hear us apologize to others and also to them. They need to know humans aren't perfect. By trusting our children to develop authentic responses, we give them self-confidence and to be sensitive and deeply caring human beings. Teaching a child to apologize and how to make amends for hurting someone is a gradual process. Before a child can apologize, they need to realize that they have done something wrong, a concept most preschoolers don't always grasp. They are still in the me phase, and they're not considering what's right or wrong. They need to understand the importance of I'm sorry. Kids aren't able to mentally put themselves in another place, but we need to help encourage the empathy by pointing out how another child feels. But don't get wrapped up in the apology lesson that you forget to deal with the original behavior. Apologies don't mean much if the behavior doesn't change. Older kids have a better sense of right and wrong, but doesn't mean they understand how others feel, and it doesn't make apologies any easier. At this age, they are concerned about what others think of them, and they don't want to draw attention to themselves by owning up for their mistakes. They may have bigger issues apologizing, but there's definitely more ways for them owning up to their own mistakes. Some kids refuse to admit guilt by acting that they're scared, embarrassed, or shy about apologizing. A willingness to apologize is an important part of growing up. But what good is an apology if it does not reflect a feeling of regret? Forcing a person to apologize. Forcing a person to pretend to be sorry does no good. It makes the person feel less sorry. Politicians use a similar strategy by making offensive remarks to attract voters, but at the same time simultaneously using an apology to those who were offended. For example, if I offended someone, I'm sorry. I take full responsibility for what had happened, but I didn't do it. I was misled by the people I trusted. They don't suggest any real regret, and they do not promise any change of behavior. Lastly, I'd like to share a story of this young boy who showed us a way to an unprompted sorry. A few weeks ago, Eli and Simon were on vacation with their cousin Matthew. Matthew, who is older than Eli. Eli and Matthew sometimes went off and played on their own, and one night after dinner, Simon was tearful and angry about the situation, and Eli was defensive and mean. Simon had interrupted. We need to have a peace circle. Eli rolled his eyes and scrunched his eyebrows. Never hearing about a peace circle, I got Eli to come over and join. Feelings, Simon had said. Eli, I just want to know. I just don't know what to do. I want to play with you and Matthew, but you just don't seem to notice me. When he was done, Eli had said calmly, in contrast to his defensiveness, Well, Simon, sometimes I don't see you because you are behind me, and because you are much smaller, I don't see your head. You just have to tell me you're there. Sorry. Simon seemed to buy it. Okay, he said. This was my children speaking from their hearts, and Eli's sorry was unprompted.